All right, guys, we are here with Colby Lopez, a.k.a. Seth Rollins, WWE Superstar. And we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
And I've been wanting to get you on the AMRAP Mentality podcast for a while because I feel like you embrace this idea of as many reps as possible. And I want to talk about that today. But we're in Sacramento, and I have a really good friend in Sacramento. His name's Mark Bell,
Hey.
a.k.a. Smelly. And we were at his gym, Super Training Gym, and we just got in a great workout. And so we're all sitting here. And, you know, Mark, you obviously have a big background with wrestling. And, you know, Colby, you have a huge background.
Me too, yeah. I got a background with wrestling.
A little bit. But I'd love to kind of start the conversation off by talking about your work ethic. You know, we're sitting here and we just got done doing a great training session. And Mark and I are sitting and we're thinking, man, this guy travels a couple times a week. Last night you were in San Jose at a big event.
Yep.
Today you're doing a show in Sacramento. Yeah, you're coming in here and you're busting your butt in the gym. And then you're traveling constantly. You've been doing this for years. And so I want to kind of back up. I was listening to a podcast and you were talking about how as a young kid you looked up to Hulk Hogan and you wanted to be aspired to be that. And you've been driven and focused for a very long time. And when you were 18, you kind of started really pursuing wrestling.
Yep.
And so what kind of started your whole like work ethic? Where is that coming from? Because I imagine you're a guy that's just all in. Where does that stem from? And what, I want to talk a little bit more about that.
I firmly believe that it was the environment that I grew up in. Just my parents, their work ethic, and my grandparents, like they were all, because I grew up in a really small Midwestern town, like less than 1,000 people, not a single stoplight anywhere. You know, the mailman delivered to a post office. There's no, like we had to drive into the town to go to the grocery store. But like my parents were very like work driven, work oriented. And we weren't, you know, we weren't poor. We were just middle class, just regular folks in a little house in the corner, you know. But they always put that work ethic into me. And my dad, who's not my biological father, he adopted me when I was 2, last name Lopez, and his parents, coming from a Hispanic background, like they were always about the hustle. So just always work. So they would, you know, they put me to work at an early age, just doing little things like chores and yard work and stuff like that. But it was always sort of incentive based in the sense that like, you know, you do this work and you're praised and you get something behind it. So for me, I think that stuck with me as I got older. Is like, if you work hard, something good will come out of it. And so they never complained. They never moaned. They were never like, oh, we want more. We need this. You know, they were just like, you go to work, you do your job. You're thankful for what you have, gratitude. Obviously, you want to move up in the world, but it was never like, you know, work always felt like the means to an end to me. It felt like that was the way to get where I wanted to go. And it seemed to work every step of the way. I would put in the work. I would get the opportunities. And then if I, you know, when, you know, preparation meets opportunity, that's where you get the success, hopefully. So that, to me, that's where it comes from.
How do you get yourself to the gym? Is it just automatic? Like, have you learned over the years, if you don't get in the car in the city that you're in and just head to the gym, that it ain't going to happen? Have you kind of like learned that over the years?
Yeah, I mean, dude, you know, you guys know how it is. Fitness becomes a bit of an addiction, you know what I mean? And probably in a chemical way, but it's a mental vibe. Like, I just feel so much better when I get a workout in. And the cool thing about CrossFit with the community, and it's been great for me, it's made fitness fun. Whereas, you know, back in the day, it was like, oh, go to the gym, get your sets and reps in, put your headphones on, and like shut out the world. Like after you do that for years, it's a lonely existence. But like CrossFit is cool. Like today, we had six people working out today,
Yeah.
right? So, just
Good vibes, pushing each other.
Yeah, and so that is the incentive. And I told Mark before I came in here, he's like, oh, I can't wait to see you. And I'm like, just wait, I'm gonna be a sad sack today, man, because I was exhausted, I was tired. Yeah. But once we got in here, started moving around, and like, you know, Jason's got good energy, Mark's got good energy, everybody was kind of feeling good. My coach Joshy G, who's in the corner over here, he's got a good, and we're all open minded. So it's like, oh, let's do this, and the next thing you know, morale picks up and I'm ready to go. So it's a good kick in the butt, and it's something that I've learned that I need to get me going for the day.
On that note, what does your schedule look like? Because when I think about, you know, kind of segmenting my day, I try and prioritize what I want to get done. I know Mark does the same. For you, what does that look like? So what does your schedule look like now that now that you have shows all the time? How many shows do you do in a year? What is the life of a WWE superstar? Because you're at the highest level possible for the WWE. I mean, you've won basically everything you can, and
Yeah.
and so on a regular basis, what does the lifestyle look like for Seth Rollins?
It's chaos. It's chaos. We're on the road 2/3 of the year, I would say at least. So wrestling probably around now 100 and maybe 180 matches a year, 160 to 180 matches a year, I would say, between live events, television, pay-per-view, overseas tours, all that stuff. And then you have travel and media on top of that. So again, probably on the road and or traveling 220, 230 days a year would be my guess. If you're healthy, full-time, used all the time, and I'm in that position where I'm fortunate, 32 years old, in good health, knock on wood, in good health, and the company relies on me to do a lot of the legwork as far as promoting shows.
But what is a daily? So okay, you landed yesterday. You had an event in San Jose. Today you have an event in Sacramento. What does that day look like for you? What does the week look like for you?
So a standard week for me is we will leave. Our first show is on a Friday, so that's like my Monday, right? So this is how I segment my week. So I always have an early flight because I live in a small town, so I have to connect. So I live in Davenport, Iowa, so our airport's small. So
Shout out to Iowa.
Yeah, it's a little regional airport, so it gets to all the hubs, but it can get me where it needs to go in one stop usually. So I'll have a 6 a.m. flight Friday morning, so I got to get up, do 2 flights to get to where I'm going. Friday's usually a rest day for me as far as training is concerned because I like to train when I'm home, just so I can get in a better groove. So Friday I'll get into the town. I usually find a coffee. I find some food, just something to relax me, to chill. We'll do the show that night. I'll probably get to the building around 5:30. The show starts at 7:30. I've been on last lately, so we'll get done at 10. By the time I'm showered and out of the arena, it's 11. Then I'll have a drive. So for this week, for example, we were actually in Nashville on Friday. So I flew from home to Nashville Friday, did what I just said, but then we had another flight Saturday morning. So we flew Nashville to L.A., met up with Josh. I went over to Paradiso and got in a workout with a couple of our friends there, hung out for a few hours, but then we drove 2 hours after that, after the workout and some food and coffee. We drove 2 hours up to Bakersfield because we had an event there. So we had the event again, 7:30, get done at 11. Then after that, 4-hour drive. 4-hour drive from Bakersfield to San Jose. So that was interesting. We got in at 3 in the morning. And had to be at the arena the next day at 11. Mind you, yeah, so we get in at 3, and that's not go to sleep. That's get to the hotel, like, okay, car's off. So then you got to get in, unpack, do your thing, get ready for bed. By the time you're asleep, it's 4 a.m. But then you got to get up, eat breakfast, and be at the arena by 11. And for me, I'm a big football fan, so I had to get up and watch. On the West Coast, you guys start your games at 10 a.m. over here. So I'm like losing my mind. I wanted to get up and watch.
You off.
Yeah, I wanted to get up and watch my team. So we woke up, 5 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep, whatever it was, and went and got some food, ate some breakfast, watched a football game and stuff like that. But like I said, I got to be at the building by 11. So we're at the building from 11 until when did we leave yesterday, Josh? 9? 9 o'clock. So 11 a.m. to 9 o'clock, doing work, getting the match ready. It was a pay-per-view, so it was a big event. So we're there all day. You had a long match. And then drove here last night, ate some food with some friends, and drove here last night. And then, again, woke up this morning. And we tried to maximize sleep. We did the fasted cardio this morning.
Yeah.
So we just woke up, drove straight here because I was like, I don't even want to wait. You have to decide, do I want to eat or do I want to sleep? And right now I need to sleep more than I'm going to eat. So we slept a little bit extra, drove here and did this workout. And then as soon as we're done with this podcast, I got to head over to the arena because we got to be there by noon. And then again, we're taping 2 episodes of Raw tonight. So I'll be there from noon until 10 o'clock. So another 10-hour day there. And then I was going to red eye out tonight, but I don't think I'll make it. So again, another 6 a.m. flight home tomorrow. And then usually 2-3 days off and back out on Friday. But since it's Christmas coming up, we have a nice stretch here.
What's interesting is he's leaving out like so much. Like he's given us a lot. You're telling us a lot about your day, but he's leaving out like how exhausting the promos are. And when he goes backstage, somebody will give him, maybe 150 photos to sign, and somebody will give him something else, right? I mean, these are all the things you're dealing with. You might be signing autographs for like Make-A-Wish Foundation or these other foundations that the WWE works with. And then you're, meeting like little kids that have been dying to meet you, for the last 5 years. And you got to be polite to this person and that person backstage. And then you're over here cutting another promo for a segment for something else. And then you got to go out on screen, on live television, and cut a 15-minute promo, and then somebody comes to the ring, and you got to remember all the shit that goes on in your match. So the physical and mental demand that's on you is like off the charts.
Well, I want to add to that, right? So when you were 18, you decided you wanted to be a WWE in it.
Yeah.
And now here where we're at right now, X amount of years later, I don't know, 12 years later, 13, 14 years later.
Yeah, I'm starting my 15th year in wrestling in January.
Whoa.
So, yeah.
15th year in wrestling, right? And so you've transitioned through over the last 15 years. Now, I mean, you just explained to us a week, and there's a lot going on, right? I mean, I think anybody would agree that that's a stressful week, and you have a stressful job. What's the kind of like the deeper reason why? What are you trying to accomplish right now that you haven't accomplished, or what's been the goal over the last 15 years to get you where you're at? I mean, where does this kind of like internal why or deep drive to kind of keep doing what you're doing? 'Cause, I mean, it sounds like it's a hustle, it's a struggle.
Yeah, I think for me, wrestling, when I was a kid, it was like my safe place. When I was really young, as you mentioned on the other podcast, I talked about the wrestlers that inspired me when I was a really young kid. They were the superheroes. Macho Man Randy Savage, the Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan. Like, comic books were cool. They were in these pages and stuff like that, Spider-Man, Superman, but like, Hulk Hogan was in the flesh. Like, I could go to the show. I could hear Real American Blast. I could see him come out. That was a superhero in real life. And so, and everything that he preached as his character was, good stuff. So I was like, that's my guy. Like, that's my superhero. That's who I want to be. And I carried that over when I was younger. But once I grew up kind of in my teens, wrestling also became like my escape. My parents got divorced. I moved away to a new town, so I didn't have any friends. This is before social media, so meeting people wasn't just like,
swipe right, swipe
yeah,
left,
yeah,
swipe
yeah,
right.
yeah. You weren't online. Like, AIM Instant Messenger. You go to message boards and meet some weird creep from like Albuquerque or something like that. But if you wanted to meet people when you were 14, I didn't have a license. I didn't have a car. I didn't know anybody. I couldn't talk to anybody. So I'm going to a new school. So I was like, well, what do I have? I got video games and pro wrestling. So pro wrestling, again, became like my safe place. So I just dove into that, and it was the one thing that, like, it kept me bonded with my brother, with my friends back home. We were all kind of on the same page. So, like, when I would see them, when I would get to go back home, like, that was how we came together. And so when we were teenagers, the internet just started to pick up. Like, you could get videos online, but it took 2 hours to download them,
Yeah.
and then they were like, you were just staring at the screen every a percent every 20 minutes or whatever it was. Like, oh, so this was also when backyard wrestling became a big thing, because now people could do it in their yard, which they were for years, but now
Right.
you could show other people that you were doing it in your yard, and people were like, oh, we were doing that in our yard too. So me and my friends really bonded over wrestling. We decided to put on our own shows, and that's when I realized that I enjoyed the entertainment side of it. Like, I enjoyed being in front of a crowd. I enjoyed being an entertainer and making people feel the way Hulk Hogan made me feel. Or, I would do a move or off a trampoline, and people would go, oh, and I would be like, hey, that's cool. And then I would go to school, the next day, and they would be like, oh, man, that thing you did I can't believe you did that. And, like, that made me feel good. That's what gave me value, was, like, impressing these people in that way. And for whatever reason, couple that with the lifelong passion that I had for the industry and my sort of disdain for, like, the monotony of everyday life of, like, you're in high school. What do you want to do for a living? You got to go to college. I didn't like school. Like, I've talked to you.
Yeah.
I've read your book, listened to the way you approach high school. You're like, oh yeah, we just get through it. You know what I
Right.
mean? It was pretty, if you're fortunate enough to be, well schooled and intelligent and aware, like, you can mosey through high school pretty easily if you want to, which is what I did. And I was fine. I got good grades, no problem. But then, the idea of going to college for me was like, I just don't want to. I don't know what I have no passion for anything in that realm. I went for a couple of years, like a year and a half or so, while I kind of started my wrestling training, but there was no, I couldn't find a passion for whatever I was being taught. You know what I mean? And whether it was I couldn't find the direction or the people giving me the information wasn't right or whatever it is, but it wasn't for me. And I just had that. I need to try to do something else to get me out of this monotony. Like, I don't want to be that guy going to his cubicle, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like, who are you if you just go to your, it just wasn't for me, and I felt that. And I was fortunate enough to feel that early on in my life where I was like, that's going to this 9-to-5 job is just not for me. I've got to do something that I'm passionate about, that inspires me, that inspires other people to want to be better than they are. Because if I'm not doing that, then I'm just wasting time. You know, I'm wasting time living.
Backyard wrestling maybe give you like a false sense of like kind of how good you were, and that's what kind of led you into pursuing wrestling further. Like you thought you were doing pretty good, right? And
yeah,
you know, backyard wrestling is like a joke, right? So
yeah, and in a weird way, it did give me. I mean, I was always a fairly confident kid. Like, you know, I felt good in athletics and played sports in junior high and stuff like that. And yeah, in a weird way, it did give me like a false sense of confidence that like, oh, I'll be all right. I can do this. I mean, it was a rude awakening once I got into the wrestling world, and like, you know, I realized that it wasn't as easy as I thought it was. But at the same time, that confidence was like, it was a jump start. It gave me like I'll give it a shot. Why not?
Well, so you were going to school for a little bit, and then you were working, and you were traveling to Chicago to go to wrestling school.
Yeah, correct.
And so did you just know when you graduated from high school, you're like, okay, corporate America isn't for me, but I know wrestling is my vision.
Yeah.
And you've just stayed true to that ever since.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, like I said, when I was in high school, everyone just the thing is like, oh, okay, you finish high school, you go to college. But there was no direct, like most people just don't have a direction. They just go to college, they get a degree in whatever they get a degree in, but there's no passion. And I always felt very fortunate that I was able to find passion in a specialized area that is pro wrestling, and I was able to parlay that into, you know, being happy and being successful. And I don't attribute that to anything but happenstance, in the sense that some people just they are just not fortunate enough to find something they're passionate about.
What about like your parents and friends and family and stuff? Where they like, what are you talking? Like, you know, you got to go to college. Like, what are you doing?
So the reason I went to college was I initially moved. There was a wrestling school out in Philadelphia. I was 18. I was like 17, I pretty much decided, all right, this is what I'm going to do. Told my folks I'm doing it. They were like, all right, okay. Well, you know, they're loving. So
they were still supportive, though.
They were supportive.
Apprehensively supportive.
Apprehensively supportive. They gave me a couple bucks. They let me. I never lived outside my house. So at 18, I spent the summer after graduation at home. I moved to Philadelphia to try this wrestling thing out. I never lived on my own. I had no idea what I was doing. Didn't know how to like find a job, really. I didn't know how to do anything. I was really like not self-sufficient at all.
What was in Philadelphia?
So Ring of Honor was a small independent wrestling promotion, and they had a wrestling school out there. There was a guy who used to wrestle. His name's CM Punk, and he was the head trainer of that school at the time. It was the best wrestling school in the country. And so I was like, I want to learn from the best. I'm going to go out there and do this. I went out there with a buddy, and again, we mismanaged everything, and we ended up being there for a month and having to come home. So we come home, and I was pretty, you know, defeated. But I found, like you mentioned, a trainer in Chicago. And I was like, I still want to wrestle. I still love this. I still got to do it. Like, I'm not going to be a failure. But my mom's one caveat for the support was like, okay, you can live in my house, you can pursue this wrestling thing, but you have to work and you have to go to school. Like, that's it. If you're not going to school, like, you can find your own place to live. So it was like, all right, I either find an apartment that I don't have money for, or I suck it up and, you know, go to college for a few hours a day. So it was, that was why I went.
Well, I think some people look at you now and they see you on TV and they see your popularity and they think it came easy. I mean, a lot of people, I think that about anybody who's made it. But from the beginning, I mean, how long did it take you, for how many years did it take you to get to a point where you could actually like support yourself through wrestling? I mean, you were working another job, you're going to school. I mean, this was for years, right? I mean, what does that process look like? Because I think it's so simple to look at people who are successful and they always want to cut them down instead of saying, hey, you know what? Colby worked really hard for a long, long time, and that's why he got to where he's at. Yeah,
so I quit my last like real job when I was 23. Now, again, I was living with my parents, so I was rent-free. But I said, Mom, look, things were going well in Ring of Honor. I had just gotten a raise. So I wasn't making enough money to where like I could move out of the house, but as long as she let me live there, I could not work the regular job. I could get paid enough through wrestling to like handle all my other bills, help her around the house, do whatever I needed to do chore wise to, make sure that I was living there was viable for her. And then I could work and make better progress because I could focus more. I could put more of my time and energy into what I was passionate about. And she followed my career. So she saw the little steps. She knew the hard work I had put in for the 5 years, before that. So cause she was there the whole way. So she saw the little steps, the increments of like, okay, he's working, he's getting a little more here, a little more there. Like it was going in a positive direction. So she said, okay, yeah, you can do this. We'll take a chance at it. So it's good. She was there. She was supportive. She held me out. And again, it was good. I signed with WWE after 6 years. So when I was 24, I signed with them. And, they paid me enough to move down to Florida and live. And that was like the first time after 6 years that I was like, I'm living by myself and with money that I'm making.
6 years.
Yeah, 6 years of like... And that's short, honestly. Like I said, I'm fortunate. Most people in my position, they work sometimes 10, 15 years. They don't get those shots. I was very fortunate to be successful, and 6 years is a short period of time in our business for something like that.
But Mark and I are sitting here, and Mark's achieved a lot of success as well. And I think 5 years is a long time when you're in something where a lot of people don't even necessarily know what it is.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so when you tell someone, hey, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a pro wrestler. It's like, oh, so, and 5 years is a long time to be dedicated to that craft without seeing necessarily like a financial return. And that's just a compliment to your kind of dedication and resilience, because that's pretty remarkable. And I think that's something to take into consideration. It's impressive to me.
You're,
for sure.
I always call it suffering for the unknown. You're doing something, you're kind of not sure why. You're like, I don't really know what the payoff is going to be, but you're so passionate about it, and you're so maybe even the word delusional. You think that you're going to be this rock star pro wrestler, and no one else can change your mind for whatever reason. Like something clicked in your head where this is what I'm going to do. And then as you got closer to it, you probably chased it down even harder and went after it even more. And you're like, I could hang with that guy. I can hang with that guy. Maybe one day I could be better than that guy. And you kind of start to see it. And when you're closer to it, it makes you even more passionate about it. And you're like, if I get my body a little bit better, if I get a little bit more athletic, like it's game over, then I can do this,
Yeah, the thing with that too is like, people think, oh, now you've made it, now it's successful, now you're living the easy life. When in fact, the deeper you get into it, the harder it becomes, the more work it is. Like I'm working harder now than I ever worked. I mentioned those 5 years. The WWE schedule was insane. The independent schedule, I was only working twice a week. I'd work Friday, Saturday, and then I'd live the rest of them. And those were shows that I wasn't flying to. And, I was driving and I was sleeping in cars and not making any money and stuff like that. Or like, living on my friends' floors and, dirt houses in Michigan or something like that. But I was young and it didn't matter and whatever. But like that was the extent of my work. As far as like actual workload at 32, almost 33, being at the top of the food chain, like now the work, it's more than ever because you got all these dogs underneath.
They're gunning for you.
They want that spot. And so I've got to outwork them.
You have something to prove every night.
Yes.
Right? Every single night.
Well, Josh Bridges and I were talking about this, how, if you qualify for the CrossFit Games one year, it's not guaranteed next year. And if you, like for you, every night you have to show up, right? Every single night. And so how do you overcome that stress, for lack of a better term? How do you overcome that every night you're showing up multiple times a week? A lot of people when they have traditional professional jobs, they might have to show up every now and then for a big meeting or whatever it may be. For you, your big meetings occur on a reoccurring basis multiple times a week. So what kind of mindset, what kind of preparation do you do before an event, like right before an event, to put out your best performance?
For me, like the performance, sometimes it's hard because like I said, when you do something 200 times a year over and over and over, it definitely becomes, it's funny. I tried to get out of the monotonous 9 to 5 lifestyle, but even after I've wrestled, over 1,000 matches in my life, like after a while it becomes
Yeah.
that, a Sunday in Paducah, Kentucky is like, all right, we got to go out there and do this thing.
Yeah,
And it
pick your
hurts.
poison, right?
Yeah, and it hurts, so it's not like you're going out there just to like shake hands and kiss babies. Like I got to fall down and get back up again. And so like it hurts. And so it does become like you got to work to get yourself up mentally for that. But for me, every time, no matter what's going on, like as soon as my music hits and I go through that curtain, you get that little adrenaline rush, and there's this connection with an audience, and that energy, like the energy we had in the gym today when you're feeling down and out, like that energy from the people, and like seeing a little girl in the front row, like with my wristbands on or something like that, like for her, that's her moment that could change your whole life. You know what I mean? For me, it's another show on a Sunday afternoon, but for her, that moment could change her whole life. You never know.
That could be you going to see Hulk Hogan.
That's
right?
exactly my
Yeah.
point. That's exactly my point. So that moment could be everything for her. So like that's what keeps me moving forward.
Is that a reflection that you do before? So as soon as you hear that music, that's a reflection that you do in your head, like every day you show, because it's someone's moment.
Yeah.
And so that's something you constantly think about.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that, like, I know it's going to happen. It's like it's going to click for me soon. Like, no matter what, I'm feeling down. My neck hurts. I'm tired. I'm sore. Maybe my knees tweaked. Like, maybe I can't. I don't think I can do what I want to do tonight, or like whatever it is. I've had a long flight. My feet are swollen. Whatever. You know what I mean? Like, once that music hits and I walk through the curtain and the red light's on, like everything's gonna go away for 30 minutes. I can manage that.
If you think it's gonna hurt, then it hurts 10 times more, right?
Usually, yeah. Or sometimes it's the opposite, where like, oh, that's not gonna hurt, and then it hurts like way more than I thought. Or like the things that hurt, I'm like, oh, what? Why didn't that hurt me?
So I want to talk briefly about your preparation physically. When I look at like the wrestlers physically, I mean, you're in great shape, and you do more acrobatic, for lack of a better term, movements than most, right? So what type of preparation are you doing ahead of time that maybe others aren't doing or aren't putting as much emphasis on, so you could physically perform? What does that look like? I mean, in terms of like your physical preparation going into these matches, obviously you're doing CrossFit on a regular basis, you're working out regularly. Are you doing anything else outside of that? Are you finding coaches out? Josh is obviously your strength conditioning coach. Do you have other coaches that are helping you prepare for these matches?
I mean, we have like our staff's cool. We got some trainers and stuff like that, and they do a good job of getting massage there. But I have like a therapist at home that makes sure that I'm taken care of every week, and a chiropractor and stuff, which I like to think it's doing something, but who knows? Because every weekend I go and screw it up. But you know what I mean? At least getting myself aligned for a few days is probably good. So I try to take care of myself in that way. And then, the training really helps. Honestly, it's funny because a lot of times people look at CrossFit and they just think, oh, Metcons. They think metabolic conditioning. They don't understand like that it's the mindset of just being an all-around athlete is what changed the game for me as far as like a fitness perspective, because the speed of what we do is increased exponentially over the years. We discussed the old timers, the Hulk Hogans and Randy Savages, and Macho Man was he was a high flyer for back in his day, and all he did was jump off the top rope once. And now, like you said, it's much more gymnastic related, but the speed of the game is just so much faster, and that's just comes with, like, I think the attention span of an audience is much shorter now. So we have HD cameras. Everybody can see everything that's happening. So the impacts are a little bit harder. Everyone's moving a little bit faster. You can't watch a 30-minute match with a headlock anymore. Like, there's just got to be so much action. The expectations are higher. And so part of that is me. I do that as well. But you have to move with the way the industry's going. And for me, CrossFit and that method of training has just kept me healthy as far as like the mobility is concerned, working on stretching, working on, just your thoracic spine. Who thought of thoracic mobility 10 years ago? No one knew, you know what I mean? No one even cared about it. And now it's like, oh yeah, that's why I feel better today. Or, you know what I'm saying? So like little stuff like that, it's not just about aesthetics anymore. It can't be.
I remember when I went with Kelly Starrett, we went to Connecticut and we did a little seminar type thing. And he had you come up and you put your arms over your head, and Kelly was like, "This guy's a mess." And I remember everybody else in the audience, like it was all the other wrestlers. They were like, if Seth can't do it, we're all in a lot of trouble. Like, we're all really screwed. Like, if he doesn't have the mobility, we're all done for.
Yeah, it was just like, and my overhead mobility is better than literally 99% of the people on the roster. And like, I've got my arm over my head, and I'm thinking that's all right. Everybody else is looking at me thinking like, oh wow, that's pretty good. I can't even get my arm. And he's like, oh, this is terrible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I mean Kelly's a stickler for it, and that's his
Right.
gig. But like at the end of the day, prioritizing just little stuff like that is what helps injury prevention. And in our business, being healthy is the name of the game, because if you don't get, you're not working, you're not making the money. So
Well, I want to talk about that. So you got injured a couple years ago,
Yeah.
tore your ACL, MCL,
and meniscus,
and meniscus.
all of them.
And so what was that like? Because, I mean, you're on this path from when you're basically, a young adult. You're on this path of just like grinding, getting there. Then you kind of get there. You do get there. And then all of a sudden it gets taken away from you in a sense, right? What was that like? And how did you overcome that hurdle in your life? Because had there been any major injuries going in, I mean, up until that point?
No, and they were all different. Like I'd had I don't want to say it wasn't major. I had neck surgery when I was like 23, 24. But it wasn't like, I didn't get anything fused. I got nothing put in. It was just, I needed some extra space for a nerve that wouldn't come unpinched. And so it was very minimally invasive. They went in, once the scar healed, I was fine. It was, it was not even 2 months. So it was no big deal. But the 6 months of like, oh, your knee's screwed, we're going to have to go in and really do surgery, total reconstruction, take, part of your patella tendon to make a new ACL, staple down the MCL, smooth out that thing. There's no way you're coming back in less than 6 months. It's not going to happen.
And I imagine every day you're sitting there watching these shows, and the show goes on, and you were the guy.
Yeah.
And so what was that like mentally to kind of like get through that process?
It was very difficult, because that is one thing about in the entertainment business, like the show always goes on, and having to face the realization that at the end of the day, as good as you are and as much as you think of yourself, I was the world champion when I got hurt. I was literally on top of the game. I was the world champion. Like, you are still just a cog in the machine, and understanding that is very humbling, and it's important to realize that you can't take for granted what you have. You have to be grateful. There has to be gratitude for those moments. And then it was about, we talked right off the get-go about how I'm just a work-oriented person, and that's just what I did. I just treated the rehab as work for me. And in retrospect, I wish I would have taken maybe a little more time for myself and enjoyed the time off, but it's just not my personality. My personality was like, okay, what's the fastest way we can get this healed? How can I get back to full strength and back doing what I love to do as fast as possible? Oh, we need to rehab twice a day? Okay, we'll rehab. Okay, when am I going to work out? I guess in between rehab sessions, because that's the only time it's going to go. 2 hours here, 2 hours there. I'll get some upper body in between, and then sleep for 10 hours to, do what I can. Do we need to do stem cell? Do we need to do PRP? Like, what do we need to do to get this done? I'll get it done. So needless to say, 5.5 months, and I was back. But it was mentally very difficult for me at that stage in my career.
Brutal. This just in from somebody that you might know, a guy named John Cena.
Oh.
So I asked John Cena because I recall this incident that happened in the ring. And Andrew, maybe you can bring it up on the screen there. I thought that Seth Rollins broke John Cena's nose, but this is a quote from John Cena. And he said, "I ran full speed into those muscular quads. My mistake. His thighs are made out of titanium and twice as strong as a normal human being." So you don't have to feel bad about breaking his nose. He messed up, and you got strong quads, and you overpowered him and busted up his face.
Oh, man, yeah. Accidents happen in the ring. As the old saying is, it's not ballet. And and even in ballet, ballerinas get hurt. You know what I mean? They're not made of titanium either. I guess John thinks my knees are. But
that's a tough opponent right there. He's pretty jacked. I mean, you got to use more speed and athleticism to beat somebody like that.
John's a big guy, but I'm okay. I'm all right. I got a couple inches on him. I got to reach, So, I think it was no, this was a different match. But John and I were doing an episode of Monday Night Raw, and there was a situation where I ended up kneeing him. And he has a tendency to put his head into the movement more than some guys. And It was the first time I had done this knee, and we did not really talk about it much backstage. It was like one little thing I threw in just to change up the flow, and I felt it. It was the first time I'd ever really hurt anybody in the ring.
Did you feel it?
Oh, I felt his nose. It literally just went, I heard it. It was just a pop and a crunch, and I felt it just smush. And then he went down in the corner, and he was a lot of blood, and he came back like it reminded me of and this might be it. Yeah. It was here it comes. Boom, right there, and down he goes. Yeah, it looks not like much there, but I got him pretty good. And I get back. There's the blood. Yeah, so I was up against the ropes, and once he realized that he was okay to continue, he came at me like just a bat out of hell. It reminded me of the scene in there he comes. Yeah, see, there he comes. Boom. It reminded me of the scene in Fight Club.
Is he really upset? Like, so what happens?
He's probably excited, probably more than anything.
Because you're in the ring, and obviously you can't control everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you guys? What happens behind closed doors with the crew? Is there a lot of? What's the vibe like after an event like this? What's the vibe like?
I mean, I'm super apologetic because, again, the name of the game is to make it look like you're hurting somebody, not actually hurt them. I mean, John, he's a professional. He's as professional as it gets. He understands, he's got big ham hands.
You and John Cena fighting is good for wrestling.
Yeah, he's punched somebody. He's punched some dudes in the face from time to time. It's not his first rodeo. So, but I mean, I don't ever want to hurt him. He was our top guy. And he's a good human being. It's not like I relished in the.
Well, he kicked me in the face and gave me a pretty black eye. So that's payback.
Payback. That's all. I was just looking out for my boy Smelly. But yeah, I was super apologetic, and John was like, "Don't worry about it. No, it's not a big deal." And I'm like, "Well, it's a kind of a big deal." Luckily, John, has the best medical team on the planet, and so he was able to get it fixed really quick. We actually wrestled like 2 weeks after this, and he looked completely normal.
What's been the worst of it for you in the ring? Like, I know some of these guys will wrestle, something will happen in a match, and their arm goes dead, or like, what's been the worst thing you had to kind of battle through?
Well, the MCL, ACL injury that Jason mentioned, it tore it in the match, and so I had to finish the match. It wasn't much left to do, but and not having stability in my knee was funky. The tendon, so you don't it stung a little bit, but it's not like this. It's not like you tear a muscle and it's like just excruciating pain. Yeah. It's like once it goes, and there's no feeling.
Yeah, you lose stability there.
Yeah, there was no stability. So I didn't really understand it. I'd never done it before. I didn't know what was going on. Pain-wise, the worst thing that ever happened to me was broke my jaw in the match. Literally, we're talking 30 seconds into a match, a guy who didn't know what he was doing forearmed me, but instead of putting his forearm in the crook of my neck, he put his elbow into the point of my jaw.
Oh my god!
And so it split.
How long did you have to finish the match?
I wrestled for probably at least 12 minutes after that.
12 minutes.
Yeah, and I was 18, maybe I was 18 years old. Right, like this was the first. So he split my jaw right down the center. Like it was not on the sides here. It was a little break on the left, like left side of the mandible, but it was legit in between my two bottom teeth. So I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, I couldn't close my mouth, and this is a little graphic, so I apologize, but every time I would close my mouth, I could feel my jaw separating in the center, and it was tearing I could feel it tearing the skin in between my two teeth. So
how long was the recovery from that?
So that was only 2 months as well. It was because they wired it shut, but not like
only 2 months.
And this is when you're 18. You're just so I just want everybody to understand when you were 18 and you just started your wrestling career.
Yeah.
You were working for UPS or one of these other companies.
Yes, I was working for UPS.
You were working for UPS, right?
Yeah.
At night.
Yeah.
That could have been a gimmick.
4 in the morning.
You were going to school.
3 in the morning, whatever it was.
Well, you don't need to talk to anybody at UPS, so you can have the jaw wired shut, right?
Well, yeah. So it wasn't like a full wire like a Kanye West, like wired shut. It was basically a bottom brace because of the way it broke. So normally people break over here, and they have to get a wired shut so it doesn't move. But mine was just like a brace on my bottom teeth, so they didn't separate when I closed my mouth. So it was not the worst situation in the world.
I do want to ask you something. So you talked about when you got hurt, about hard work and how it's just ingrained in you. I want to float back to your high school days because you said something on an interview I was really intrigued by, how you regret kind of being so closed-minded to people, you regretted kind of judging everybody and thinking you were always right and everybody else was always wrong. Yeah. And looking back on it, like you wouldn't go to parties, you wouldn't do things because I'm really curious if you could shine some light on that and where you think that stemmed from And then how'd you overcome it? Because I'm sure there's other people who are probably either they don't recognize they're doing that, or maybe they do recognize they're doing that, but they can't overcome it.
I honestly wish I knew where the sense of entitlement came from. I don't know. It was just like I mentioned that my friends and I bonded over pro wrestling, but we also felt isolated in our interests. And so when we bonded over being straight edge and being into wrestling and being different, and so that was just, it became our rallying cry. And it was so anti-establishment, that because it wasn't what anybody else was doing. Everyone goes to high school. And like,
How weird is that? Being
yeah.
good is different.
Yes. They're like, oh, we want to go party. Let's do this and that. And, hang out with the upperclassmen, go to football games, get wasted on the weekends, talk about it on Monday. Like, and like, for some reason, I was disgusted by it. Like, I hated it. But it also put me off of being social. Like, I was only social within my own crew. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, in a way, those blinders kept me focused and helped me along my path. But at the same time, it closed a lot of doors from a personal perspective just because I was so close-minded that it turned people off.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
I was the same way. I didn't go to homecoming. I didn't go to the prom. I didn't go to any of that. I was like, I just played football. I lifted. I was like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I can't explain why I was so focused in that way and so, like, head forward and all that stuff. But I just looking back, I wish that I had been more open-minded to people. Not that I wish that I'd done all that stuff necessarily, but I just wish that I had been more accepting of other people and their ways that they live their life.
Because you felt like your way was the only way, and
Yes.
you didn't understand why anybody would not be that way.
Yes.
And so if someone's in that situation today, let's just say they're in high school, they're a WWE fan, they're a Seth Rollins fan, and they kind of find themselves being the same way. Maybe they're straight edge, maybe they're just different. I mean, who cares? Everybody's different, right? What would you tell them? What would be the advice for them to overcome that? Because you looking back on it, you probably missed out on a few things, but it also kind of led you to where you're at today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's pros and cons to everything, but what would you have done different?
I think understanding, if I could tell, like, 15-year-old Colby, Seth, whatever, that, if I gave him one piece of advice, it'd just be to understand that everyone has different shoes to walk in, right? Everyone has a different story. I think it's so easy to, look at the world through your own lenses, to look at through your own perspective, but it takes so much to step outside yourself and really try to understand that everyone's got their own stuff going on. Everybody's got their own path, their own story, their own shoes, and no matter what, like, even if you have these differences or these similarities, you're never fully going to be able to understand how people experience life through their own set of eyes, through their own personal experience, because that's the only way we can experience existence, each other, love, these feelings, all these things. That's the only way we have them is through our own personal experiences. And so you're never really going to be able to get how other people see things. And I think once I started to understand that as an adult, it really changed my perspective on how I interacted with other human beings.
You'll be shocked at the things that you can get when you help other people too. So like maybe the way that you were, maybe it wasn't open to like helping somebody that might be like that because you're like, that has nothing to do with anything I want to be part of. And you might look down on that person, kind of, right?
Yeah, and it, whether that's a natural instinct or something that's been you've learned or whatever. But yeah, that is, I think sometimes when things are different, your first instinct is to scoff at it, is to turn away to it, or like you said, look down on it. And I think if you have a more open-minded approach and again try to put yourself in that person's shoes and understand how they got to that place mentally or how they arrived at this location in their life, it'll give you a sense of gratitude. It'll humble you a little bit, let you understand that again we're all different, we all have different stories, and even though we're all connected, everyone's got their own lenses to see life through.
Wow. I agree 100%. So switching gears a little bit, right now you're at the top of the game in WWE. What are the goals for Colby right now? What are you trying to accomplish that you haven't accomplished? Because when you set out at the early age, you're like, hey, I want to be a WWE champion. Boom, done. I want to be on the cover of a, I don't know, video game. Done. Whatever. Right? You get these things that kids only dream of.
Yeah.
And now you've accomplished those. And, I know I probably speak for Mark in saying this, and you could agree with me, is that for myself as well, I try and set goals. And then sometimes when I accomplish them, I'm just on to the next one. I don't even realize that I had worked so hard for that goal. I need to be appreciative of that and like enjoy it.
Yeah,
I think I'm always thinking about the next thing, right? And it's a blessing and a curse.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And so for you in your life, where are you at right now? Because you've accomplished so much, and I know that you have your wrestling school,
Yeah.
which is a whole different, new challenge, and probably comes with a ton of benefits. But from a wrestling and from a life perspective, what are you trying to do in the next couple of years?
So for me, in wrestling, there's a few things that so you mentioned some of those goals, right? I've won world championships, I've main evented pay-per-views and stuff like that, and had good matches and been able to travel the world and see things through my job that most people don't get the opportunity to do, which is fantastic. And that, I think, alone has helped me gain a lot of perspective about my own life and be able to, even say the sentences that I just said to you just a little bit ago. So that's all great for me. Personally, on a professional level, I still want to main event WrestleMania. That's the big one for me. I've been on the cover of a video game. That was never even a goal of mine. Never even thought that was a possibility. You know what I'm saying?
It's a damn good goal,
Yeah,
though.
yeah. I never even thought, oh yeah, one day I'm going to be on the cover of the WWE video game.
Pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
That's like one of those. It was like, whoa, what, really?
Yeah.
But for me, I want to main event WrestleMania. The WrestleMania you came to at Levi's in San Jose, I was fortunate enough to walk away at the end of that one with the World Heavyweight Championship. But I wasn't in that match per se. I cashed in my briefcase that you love to reference that I've been carrying around for over a year. And
because you brought that up, could you just briefly explain?
Money in the bank.
Yeah.
Can you just briefly explain that you brought that with you everywhere?
Everywhere, yeah. I carried the Money in the Bank briefcase, which is essentially a symbolic of a contract that I can cash in anytime for a shot at the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. I used to have to carry it everywhere. I won it in like June.
When you say everywhere, what do you mean by that?
I mean everywhere. I mean anywhere I would travel, there was a pro wrestling show or an appearance related to WWE. I had it with me. So like it was my carry-on my airplanes. I bring it into the gym. I had it everywhere. Like there's anywhere I would go, it was with me. It was obnoxious, really obnoxious. But so I cashed that sucker in the main event of WrestleMania, walked out with a title. But the match was Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. Like my goal is to the last match on WrestleMania, the one that puts all the butts, in the seats,
Right.
is whoever versus Seth Rollins. That's to me always been my goal. From day one, that's like WrestleMania is the pinnacle of our business. That's like you're the Super Bowl MVP that night.
Right.
So that's kind of what I wanted. On a personal level, to me, you mentioned the wrestling school, and I've been doing that for 4 years now. And that's like, to me, I think that'll be my greatest legacy, which is saying a lot because I've created some moments that people are going to remember forever, I think, in wrestling. But I think the information that I've been able to provide for these kids who, again, may not have had a direction. All they've got is this passion for pro wrestling in their lives. They're inspired by Seth Rollins or whomever. They know that I've got a school. They pack up their stuff from Germany or whatever and move over to Davenport, Iowa
Crazy.
for 3 months and learn how to wrestle. And some of them stick around, man. Some of these kids that move from wherever, they live now in Davenport, Iowa, or in the Quad Cities area. And we've really started to build a community out of it. And I think that was one of the things I never really aspired to when I was younger. It was beyond me. I didn't I don't care about anybody else but my own goals. But now I find a lot of value in helping out other people in my community, especially these guys and girls who are younger, who have the same passion that I have or think they have the same passion that I have, and trying to cultivate that and get them to the next level, to be the next Seth Rollins or bigger than me or whatever it is, But I have this information, this wealth of knowledge that I've accumulated over 15 years of doing this, and I'm able to pass it along to them at an early stage in their career and their early development, and hopefully they're not going to understand everything they're hearing, but hopefully you plant the right seed and it'll pave the way for not just them, but an entire future generation of pro wrestling. So I'm hoping that that'll be my biggest contribution. We've put the gym in a really cool location in my hometown in downtown Davenport. I'm investing in a little coffee shop next door.
Hell yeah.
So
I like that.
yeah, giving people a little taste. There's no great coffee shops in Iowa. We're a little behind on the times. So like I'm a huge like third wave coffee, craft coffee guy. So for me, I wanted to take something that I travel the world and get to try this wonderful coffee. I wanted to take something that I love and give it back, give it to my community. And hopefully they'll enjoy it as much as I do. But here's like a little taste of something that's fantastic, and I don't think you guys get enough of. So to me, right now, that's sort of what I'm focused on personally, is just building a better community through whatever means I can. And wrestling has been great to me and has given me the opportunity to do that.
Huge collegiate wrestling state, Iowa, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, I'm trying to
Cool.
bring the pro wrestling game
Yeah.
up a little bit. But yeah, University of Iowa is huge in college wrestling. We're always top 5.
Right.
So
I've been to Dubuque, Iowa. Went to the convention center over there and benched 800 pounds some years ago.
That's
Yeah.
it.
that's
How far is that
right?
from where you're at?
Dubuque's about an hour north.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, right up the river. It's actually halfway between Davenport and Madison.
There we
So,
go.
so just to kind of like the last note here is you have your business, which is obviously wrestling. You have your fitness, which is, you mainly do CrossFit. But on your family or personal level, how do you balance having a relationship, right, with also being on the road so much? And I'm curious,
He's
just
gonna
for
get in
people,
trouble now.
and I'm just curious for people who are listening who, I don't think more is always better, but I think just better, more attention is always great. And I'm curious if that's the way you live with your girlfriend, meaning when you're home, you're present, you're with her, you're developing a relationship because you're on the road so much. What do you do to keep that relationship tight because you're gone almost 50% a year, if not more?
Yeah, I mean, it is very difficult. I'm not gonna lie, dating me is not easy. It is not easy at all. I mean, I work when our wrestling school is in session, I work 7 days a week. So I mentioned the 4 days that I do the
Traveling.
stuff on the road. But when I'm home, those are the days the wrestling school is open. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm at the school for a little bit of time at least, and that's where my gym is too. It doubles as a gym. So, training's a priority. The wrestling school is a priority. For me, it's the same way. I don't have a lot of it. I don't have a lot to give. So if you're dating me and you're looking to spend a ton of quality time together and take vacations and all this, I don't have that, and she knows that. But when I am with her and we do have our time, like you said, it's the quality of time that you spend, not the amount of time that you can give. So yes, when you are home, it's trying to be present in that moment. There's so many distractions. 2018 is the year of the distraction, you know what I'm saying? So trying to eliminate those as much as possible and focus in on what time you have to just be with that person and just putting that focus on them, I think gives them a little bit of the patience to understand, that you have to go again on Friday morning.
Is there anything in particular you do when to do that?
Um,
Little technique or like trick?
I don't have anything for that, man. Like, this stupid little device right here. I've done my best with holding up a cell phone. I know you guys can't see this, but this, I tried my best to separate Colby Lopez from Seth Rollins. In that sense, that when I'm with her, and granted that my career is such a big part of my life that it's part of me. You know what I mean? You can't separate it entirely. Like, if you love me, you're gonna love Seth Rollins as well. That's just part of the gig. You know what I'm saying? But understanding that she just wants time with that person. So put this thing away, sit down, have a conversation, engage, ask real questions, appreciate real answers, and listen. Because 9 times out of 10, she don't want to hear about how my day was. You know what I mean? She just wants me to talk to her about her day, care about how she feels and stuff like that. So giving her the quality of attention she needs, I think, is important, and understanding that it's not, the time you do give to your relationship, whatever that may be, like that's her time or, his time, whoever you are. But that's their time that they're getting from you. So make that worth their while, because otherwise, like I said, it is hard. It is hard to date me.
Does she travel with you at all, or go to some shows here and there?
Well, I describe my schedule, and normal people don't want to do that.
Right.
They don't want to do that, and it sucks, dude. Like it's Joshy comes with me sometimes, and he sees it. He
A lot of sitting around.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
right?
It's a lot of like, okay, well, I have to be at the building for 10 hours, and I'm like you mentioned, I'm signing pictures, I'm meeting people, I'm talking about the match, I'm trying to rewrite this promo, or things change on the fly. You never know what's gonna happen. So like, it's work, but it's also a ton of downtime. And the travel's cool, but it's not, like I said, I've gotten to see things if I go out of my way, but a lot of the weeks it's just you're at the gym, you're at the hotel, you're at the arena. That's it. Yep. Those are the only things I see. I've made it out and I go out of my way to get the coffee for 15 minutes, but
Of course.
yeah. But yeah, she'll travel every once in a while when we're in the same town for a while, when we do our big events, WrestleMania, we're in New York for a week. I'll bring her up for the week, New York. We can have we'll have time. We can actually like plan a couple dinners out, or, and she can go see some things that she hasn't seen, or we're in Phoenix for the Royal Rumble coming up here in January for a few days. So, maybe she's got a friend in Phoenix or something, but I'll bring her out for a few days. That way she can actually get the experience of being in the city and not just like, oh, I want to go to sleep in the car because your schedule is insane. So yeah, I do my best to try to accommodate that. But at the end of the day, it is work. So.
Well, I got to tell you, man, you're a guy who's put in work for a long time. I know Mr. Mark Bell over here has as well. I really enjoyed hearing more about kind of the background, especially what you were talking about with high school and how you were, pushed off other people's opinions. I think that's really powerful stuff. I know you have to go to a show tonight. We wish you all the best in Sacramento to go out there and crush it. Yeah, I mean, where can people find you if they want to know more about Seth Rollins?
Yeah, everything on social is WWE Rollins. So Twitter, WWE Rollins, Instagram, WWE Rollins. Don't do a Snapchat. Facebook is private, so don't worry about that. Those are the only two socials you really need to worry about. Otherwise, like I said, we got some good stuff coming up, a ton of live events in January all over the country, and then we'll be in Phoenix at the end of January for a week for Royal Rumble. If you are a fitness enthusiast and you want to come to Phoenix and watch pro wrestling, we're also probably going to be doing another Dead Boys seminar with my coach and I, Joshy G. So that's basically a community workout for everybody who wants to come hang out and learn a little bit about CrossFit. And that's it, man. Then we're just marching towards WrestleMania in April. So yeah, check me out online, tweet me, DM me, whatever you want to do, comment, like, whatever.
Last question: when you're on the road, what do you listen to? How do you like educate yourself? You reading books? You listen to audiobooks? Listen to podcasts?
Yeah. So I like music on the road, like when I'm driving. Well, I'll listen to a podcast every once in a while. Like I keep up on Jason's just because it's very interesting to me. But like I can't get too deep into it. Sometimes if I listen to people talk for too much, I get sleepy, so I can't do that. So I like music when I'm like driving, but I do love to read as well. There's an author that I've really taken to. His name's Yuval Noah Harari, and he's written a few books. The big one's called Sapiens, and it's basically, Sapiens is he did that one. He did Homo Deus, and now it's like 21 Lessons for the 21st Century.
It's a big book, Mark.
Yeah,
Scary.
Yeah, it's a lot of words. But I think it should be required reading or audiobook if that's your thing. For anybody, it's such an amazing perspective on human history. And that's what I've been focused on lately. So otherwise, I like a good Netflix binge, and when I'm at the hotel, I can sit back and watch some Blue Planet or something like that, and learn about the oceans. So yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, all the things I hated in high school, now I like to learn about philosophy and animal life and all this weird stuff, science and stuff. So yeah, it's funny how that comes around. But yeah, I try to stay busy when I have the time, and I actually can spend it. Otherwise, it's coffee shops and Nintendo Switch.
There you go.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, have a great day.